orange arrow moving from the SBR back to the treatment chamber, this only means that we have untreated sludge. Like from every batch, we have that sewage that is not usually treated. So what we do is, because it's a sequential batch reactor, we have to take it back to the pre-treatment for it to begin the process, so that the entire batch is treated at after some period of time. So you may wonder where our sludge goes. I hope that answers that question if you have it, that all our the entire process makes sure that at least we try to recover everything present in the sewage. As you know, sewage is usually 95 to 97% water. So only sludge is between 3 to 5%, which then will take a longer period of time to maybe accumulate. So our systems, we don't usually have the issue of exhausting sludge every now and then. I hope that answers your question, and I have explained the schematic of the underground tanks that we usually have. Next slide. Oh yeah, I didn't speak about the cabinet control. Now, as you can see, we have different colors representing different air hoses. The blue from the cabinet control, the blue air hose only represents the clean water discharge, the treated water discharge. Now it goes to the outflow. At the outflow, you can have a tank, you can have direct reticulation. It depends on what the client wants to use. The yellow represents aeration, the green represents the sludge return, and the red represents the feeding of the raw sewage into the reactor chamber. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the process that I had spoken about is now represented in this chamber. Remember, I had mentioned airlift pipes transferring from one chamber to the other. Now, this explains, setting explains what happens in the SBR chamber. So in the SBR, we have about 4 types of processes taking place. We have the loading, where now the sewage, the raw sewer enters the treatment chamber. And then we have the treatment phase, which means aeration. Now, this is how we treat the sewage. So the presence of oxygen in the sewage only increases the biological process. This means that life present in the sewage, which is the microbacteria, is what we usually emphasize on. Rather, we only increase what nature happens. So when during aeration, the microorganisms are activated now to feed on the sewage matter and the sludge, and to reduce how they look, like the density, the color, the size, and everything. So when the microbacteria feeds on the sewage matter, then the properties of the sewage are changed. And then after that treatment process, we have the settling phase, where now we have to have the sedimentation, like in the previous picture. Maybe let's go back to that slide. The slide where we have the impact. It's above, yes. Now on the picture on the farthest left, you can see settling taking place, the settling that we're talking about. After the sewage has been treated, sludge has to be separated from the mixture so that we get at least this activated sludge. And then we have the clean treated water, which this clean treated water is now what we move into the storage chamber. And this whole process is not done manually, it's done automatically using the control cabinet. Now we go back. Yeah, now I have finished explaining what happens in the SBR, and the last process is we have the Clearwater disposal phase. Now, after the settling, we have the transfer of the clean water from the SBR into maybe the storage chamber, which then you can see at the end like some blue water trickling. Now, this trickling means it can go to the Shamba, if we have a client who's using it for irrigation, it can also go to a storage chamber. If we have a client who maybe wants to use it to wash cars or to clean his compound and to use it for dust suppression, you can't use all of it at once. So it has to be stored for a very short period of time as you wait for the reuse time. So that is the end of the SBR process. So we move into the next slide. And I hope I am going slow. I am not taking you guys faster. But in case you have questions, please remember to write them down. We'll have a Q&A session where you'll be able to ask your questions. So in this phase, we're going to talk about the difference between a biodigester and our EOCYCLE Klaermax systems. Many a times people call us to inquire and they're always referring to us as people who do biodigesters. I want to make it clear that no, we do not do biodigesters. Instead, we have Klaermax wastewater recycling systems. So I'll just mention a few differences between our system and the normal biodigesters. So from on the Klaermax side, you can see a building. The black manholes is where we have now our chambers represented. And you can see that at the end, our top slabs are not wasted. Like this client is using it as a parking area, and you can see there is a door that enters into the client's house. So this means that the system has no smell, and it does not affect the environment of the people living near there. So you can have it as close to your home as possible. And we cannot have that happening in a normal biodigester. As we know, we only have separation that is usually taking place, and water is not treated, so it is just let to trickle from one chamber to the other chamber and then let into the environment without treatment taking place. Also, the other major difference that we have is you can see the second drawing on the Klaermax side. It is a clear indication of our underground tanks. Yes, so you see the transfer sleeves are the small holes that you can see on the walls of the chambers. So these are what we anchor our airlift pipes that we use to transfer sewage from one chamber to the other, which is contrary to the normal biodigester, which we can see has a network of pipes happening. So now these ones also mean that sewage is passed from one chamber to the other as they try to filter out the solid part of the sewage and separate it from the liquid part before letting it out into the environment. So those are the biggest difference, again, I would say, is now in a biodigester, you do not reclaim your clean water from the sewage, but in EOCYCLE Klaermax systems, then we have the reclamation of the treated water. Now let's move to the next slide.
Allow me to add something on the differences of the biodigesters and EOCYCLE system. The biggest technical difference, our system is an electromechanical system running on electricity to allow aeration. So we are able to break down sewage in 8 hours to clear odorless water that can be reused. But with a biodigester, it's just a chamber where they receive the waste. And from this picture, you can see a biodigester takes a lot of pipe work because you have to separate the black and the gray. So the toilet waste is separated from the kitchen, from the laundry. So for every single manhole that we have going to EOCYCLE, for a biodigester, you will have double. One for the gray water and the other one for the black water. So in terms of if we have quantity surveyors in the house, you can see just the manhole network alone would double a BOQ item, because instead of just having all the wastewater flowing in single network manhole, for the biodigester, it's double and double pipe work. And it ends up draining just in like a sock pit in your compound that would either become swampy, and sometimes when there are blockages, the water actually starts overflowing on the manholes. So that's a clear difference that we do aeration. For them, it's just holding and separating and finally soaking, and the water sometimes still has an odor that comes out of this. Thank you. Troy, you may go ahead.
Okay. Next slide. So here in the next slide, it is just to explain further the differences that you have seen in the pictures, but now to enhance on the EcoCycle recycling system. So these are some of our advantages, that even though we have an electromechanical system, we have minimal electricity consumption. That is, maybe you can have a question, we'll answer it later. And then you have seen that our tanks use very minimal space, and also you can reuse again your top slabs. And then the kind of pipes that we use are usually all weather resistant pipes. So at no point will we need to like maybe replace the pipes because they are long overdue, or rather they have gone bad. No, they are all weather and they stay for the longest time. That is the kind of the material we use that you had seen us installing in the chambers as airlift pipes. And then we have no electrical or submersible pumps inside the wastewater. So also that's another way whereby we save on the electricity, because we don't have pumps running inside the chambers. Also, it has low noise levels, no waste separation. We take both gray and black water. And then, as I had said, maybe I had not mentioned, but the treated water, as you can see in the picture, usually and always meets the government regulations, or rather the NEMA water regulations. So in case a client wants to discharge the treated water back to the environment, all they have to do is just to apply for the discharge permit from NEMA. And our treatment systems are yes, have passed the regulations. And then also, because we reclaim your water, it saves on the water bills. And then the result for people who are using it to water their lawns, always the impact is green lawns 24/7. During rainy seasons and even during dry seasons, their lawns are always green and look really nice and aesthetic. Rather, let me use the word lush. And then because our systems have elimination of bad smell through breather pipe provisions that we do during tank construction, then you find that the systems have no smell at all, and that is why we can have them as closest to your home as possible. And usually it is not even easy for you to realize that there is a sewage system when you're standing on top of it, until maybe when someone tells you or when they open. And then also another advantage of our system is we have zero or no groundwater pollution, as the water is treated to the required standards that are is we do not release untreated sewage, but instead we treat it to the required standards that are safe for the environment and the groundwater at large. Next slide. Now in the next slide, we now want to start looking at the installation steps. Now, obviously, when you come to us and you tell us you want a system, then the first thing we usually do is to come for a site survey, choose a site location. You can see that is Engineer Lucy doing a site survey. So we choose a site location and maybe mark out the tank where it will be. And then after the site survey and the design of the tank, then tank construction can begin. And like I mentioned, please have it at the back of your minds that at EcoCycle, we really, really treasure safety. So anytime we go to site, we always have to be dressed in the right attire. Yeah, so the next step after we have done the site survey, as the client starts building the tank, then for EcoCycle, what we also start with is we begin with the ordering process. As you know, we have our manufacturers and producers back in Germany. So what happens is we order for your system, and then as the tank is being constructed, the delivery process is ongoing. So our timelines are in such a way that at the end of the tank construction, which is usually about 8 to 10 weeks, then the system usually has arrived, and then once the tank is over, installation begins. Next slide. Next, yes. So the tank construction, we have different factors that have to be considered. The end use of the top slab. So if maybe someone wants to use it as a parking area, then the tank that we recommend is usually a reinforced concrete tank. But when maybe it's used as a laundry area or just as a hanging area where we have no load that will be applied on top of the tank, then a masonry tank would do. So what happens is a minimum tank construction usually is 2 months, one depending on the size of the system. Like you cannot compare the tank of a small home and the tank like the one we were doing installation for 500 people. There's usually a significant difference in the lead times of the tank constructions. So there are factors that we have to consider during tank construction. For one, the tank being constructed has to meet the design and the specifications that EOCYCLE team will share with the client. And then the tanks that are being constructed also must have very good waterproofing done. Like I said, one of advantage is to minimize on the groundwater pollution. So this is why we do waterproofing to avoid the sewage seeping out from the tank and mixing with the groundwater, and also to avoid the groundwater moving into the tank. So we have to ensure very good waterproofing. And then the transfer sleeves, the ones that we use to mount on the airlift to be able to transfer, also have to follow the design and the specifications given. So those are the few factors I could mention that we have to consider during the tank construction. Another one that maybe we may not have indicated there is the invert level. So depending on the ground and where the sewage is being collected from, we have to consider the invert level. For those who are not engineers or technical in this webinar, maybe let me explain. The invert level is the difference between the last manhole and where the sewage now enters. Reason being, it has to enter through gravity. We do not pump sewage from the household into the tank, it flows by gravity. So from the next slide, which is now the actual installation first step, I would like to invite my colleague Wycliffe to take us through in the next short minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Troy, for the presentation.
Just before Wycliffe. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes,
we can hear you.
Add something on the civil works before we go to actual installation. We must remember that we have to always engage a competent civil engineer. So clients sometimes may just be working with fundis in their small projects, but this being a structural component, we always insist on having a civil engineer do the proper design, because while ours is more mechanical, installing the equipment, this bit is very civil and structural. And depending on the soil type, those are some of the decisions that also can influence whether you will do a masonry or a reinforced concrete will be done, in addition to whether the top slab will be used to carry loads, e.g. like parking. So this bit requires the involvement of a competent civil and structural engineer working together with the builder's contractor, following our tank schematic drawing to make sure the final installation and the complete system will work efficiently. Now, Wycliffe, you may continue to the actual.
Okay, thank you. The next slide, we have the equipment assembling at site. I hope I'm clear. Hello?
Yes, you are.
Oh, yes, you are very clear.
Okay, thank you. So once you have your tank constructed, our team always come to your site now to do the actual installation. The first step that we do in the actual installation is ensuring that everything we deliver to your site is up to the specification that we designed. For example, you can see in that picture, one of our technical members is trying to measure the pipes to ensure that they're to the correct height and everything is met to the correct specifications according to the designs. So first of all, we usually assemble the pipes. The pipes you see there are what we call the airlift pipes. The airlift pipes are in different categories. We have the ones for the clear water discharge. Or let me start from the first stage. We have the ones for the filling, that one that takes the sewage from the buffer tank, if you remember what Troy said, to the treatment tank, which we call the SBR tank. Then from the SBR tank, we have another airlift pump that takes the treated water to the clean water tank. And then from the same treatment tank, we have another airlift pipes that take the sludge stroke the activated biogas to the buffer chamber. Now, before we do any installation, this is the first thing. You assemble everything to ensure that once you get into the tank, everything is okay and everything meets the requirement that we are designed to. Yeah, next slide. Okay, so now in the next slide, you can see the pipe mounting work. The one that Engineer Lucy is holding, those are the clear water discharge pipes. As you can see, they are mounted. That's a very big system. It's around a 500 PE system. The pipes, those are the pipes responsible for discharging the treated water into the clear water tank. If you can see up there, I don't know whether Engineer Lucy can zoom, there's an elbow there. Yeah, that one is an elbow. Now, the water usually gets filled to up to that elbow, up to some levels above the elbow, according to how the design is made. And then any clear water that is above that discharge elbow gets into the treated water tank after some times. Now, those are the mounted pipes. You can see this one, the one on the far right, at the upper side, that's for the filling for a small system, the ones that bring all the sewage to the treatment water tank, and that's the elbow. The one on the downer side, that's also for the clear water discharge. And these ones are for a bigger system. That's why you're seeing them. There's very many. It depends all again on the volume that is being discharged. The bigger the system, the more the airlift pipes you have. Okay, next slide. Once we've assembled all the airlift pipes, we go to the aerator disc. If you watch the video we started with, we saw that we have something called the aerator disc. Now, the aerator disc are responsible for supplying air into the system. We told you our system is electromechanical. Now, our water treatment system takes a natural process. That means we supply air into the system. This application of air, as in we go to anaerobic and aerobic aeration, if you understand that. There are bacteria that live in the sewage. So these bacteria, they're those ones that uses the air to feed, and as they feed on the sludge or as they feed on the sewage, they tend to treat the water. They tend to break down the components of the sewage into clean water. There's the process of denitrification. If you can remember those chemical process that maybe some of you might have had them in the high school process, or you can assume the natural rain making process. Once you have your water from the underground, it gets to the clouds or it gets to the atmosphere, then it forms, then it falls down as clean water. Now that's the basic process that takes place inside those tanks. The one responsible for the application of the air are those aerator discs. The black ones you can see at the bottom. Now the white ones or the hose pipes there, those are the ones that are responsible for the application of air from our compressor. In the later diagram, we'll show you what a compressor is all about. Now those hose pipes are designed according to the amount of air that is required to supply the amount of air that is required to treat the sewage into the tank. You realize again the number of discs vary according to your system. So maybe if you have a small system of around 10 people, it can be around 2 discs. Normally, discs occupy around a space of around 0.95 meters. we have a spacing of around 0.95 meters within every disk space to ensure that there's maximum application of air, so that whenever you get your treated water, all the chemical components will be broken down, and then you'll get a very clear and clean water. Next. Now, once we've installed the aerator disc, the next process we are done inside the tank, the treatment chamber water tank. And for your information, you should know that in our system, treatment takes place only in one tank, what we call the SBR tank, where you've seen the disc. Now, once this is done, we go to our control chamber, which is now like the brain of our system, which now controls everything. In our control chamber, we have various components. The most important component that controls everything, we have the PLC on the far right down. The PLC, yes. Now that's a computer. The computer has a program in it that's able to control all the systems. We told you that this systems is automated. So once we do the first stage, which is called filling, we usually have filling, which is taking the sewage from the second tank to the treatment tank. That's usually done, it's signaled by the computer. The aeration, this application of air, that's also signaled by the computer. The Clearwater discharge and all those processes are signaled by the computer. Now, this computer has the ability to also read any error. For example, you are in a place where maybe you don't have a constant power supply, or maybe today, let's say you had electricity, yesterday it got lost and something like that. This PLC will be able to detect those errors, and then whenever your system gets an error, our team will be able to come to site, and we can be able to read what happened to your system. As in, it will be automated, we'll know whatever happened and we'll be able to rectify for it. It also signals any emergency issues. It has an alarm on it, so whenever there's any alarm or whenever there's an overflow, such a things, it's able to stop all the process, or it's able to go to an eco mode. So, for example, we can design for you a system of around 10 people, and assuming at times, we assume that maybe a maximum number of people in your home can be around 10 people. And then at times you stay in your home alone. Maybe you are one person in that place and you're wondering how will now the system work. Now, the PLC is able to go to something called an eco mode, whereby it can accommodate the amount of sewage that is being produced by that time. It's able to determine if for example, if the system is supposed to treat 1.5 cubic meter of water per day, and now we are producing the sewage, the system will detect automatically and treat the appropriate number of sewage. Now, the other part of this, the system that we have is called the compressor. Compressor again this is the part responsible for the application of air to the aerator disc. Now, the size of compressor, again, it is determined by the size of the system. For example, on the far right, you can see we have there's a compressor there. Yeah, that one is called a compressor. It supplies air, and it's the one responsible for the airlift pipes that we had talked about. On the far left, we have another bigger one that's on us for a bigger system. Yes, the one you can see there, that one again is the one responsible. Those things you see above that compressor, they're from the ones that are responsible for the application of air into the aerator disc. From the far left, we have the pipe responsible for filling. That it's when the PLC signal it fills the sewage from the buffer chamber to the treatment chamber. The second one is responsible for aeration, application of air into the aerator disc for the process of aeration. The third one is responsible for the clear water discharge. Once the water is treated, it signals the PLC signals the compressor to take all the treated water to the clean water tank. And the third one is the fourth one, the last one, is responsible for the sludge return. Once we have all the sludge, after sometimes we usually have sludge that settles at the bottom of the treatment water tank. Now, this sludge are taken back to the buffer chamber for more bacteria formation. That pipe is responsible for that. Up there, you can see our system is very guarded. We have electronics that are responsible to ensure that the system don't burn out. For example, if you have a phase failure, if you have too much electricity coming in, we have all the applications that are responsible. On the far right, you can see, I don't know whether you can zoom it, there's a fridge guard. That's for a small system. I hope most of you have seen a fridge guard because we use it at home. Now, that fridge guard is responsible whenever we have a power failure. you know the work of a fridge guard. Whenever from the name guard, it guards against power loss. So whenever you get power loss, and then whenever power comes back, maybe it can come back in too much current. So that fridge guard is responsible for safeguarding your system, so that you ensure that the system is not burnt in any way. Yeah. So again, one thing you should note again in our control cabinet, we have a float switch. You can't see it from there, but this yeah, that's one. That's a float switch. Now the float switch is responsible for ensuring the correct level of sewage is treated at a given time. But apart from the float switch, we have the PLC that is also responsible for attaining the correct level. Now that's all about the control cabinet. From the video you saw, it's mounted on the ground. It depends on the site. Sometimes it can be mounted on the ground. Sometimes it can be mounted on the wall, depending on the size of the system. Yes. Next slide. Once we install our system, we usually commission it. We usually do a test run first to ensure that every component is working. When I talk of every component, I talk of every process that we have talked about: the filling process, where we take the sewage from the buffer to the treatment chamber, the clear water discharge process, the aeration process. Now, usually, once we've installed our system, once the technical team has come to your site and has installed your system, the client or the client representative will always be there, and then we'll show you all these processes. And then you'll be satisfied that all these things are working. Once you are satisfied, we'll commission the project to you. And then once we've commissioned the project to you, we'll give you a 1-year warranty to make sure that whatever thing that will happen to that system within that 1-year warranty, will be responsible to it, so long as you follow every instruction that we give. Now, after this 1-year warranty, we usually have another maintenance contract, depending on how you agree with the EOCYCLE. But normally, we usually have minimal maintenance, apart from maybe electrical issues that might be as a result of somebody not taking care of instructions that we give. But normally our system, we have very, very minimal maintenance. So what we do within this within this 1-year warranty, whenever you hear of any problem, you always call us, or our system, we always do frequent spot checks to ensure that our system is working okay. Once you subscribed, we do continual optimal services through annual maintenance contract subscription. This may be, if you're interested in our system, to us, and then we describe to you what happens during that time. But during the 1-year warranty, anything that happens to the system, so long as you followed our instruction properly, we'll be responsible for rectifying everything. Yes, and attend to any emergency calls. Next slide. As Troy had told you, before we start any installation, we usually undergo training and safety to ensure that our staff or our colleagues that are working are safe, and everybody that's around that place is safe. We usually ensure that all PPEs are, like you can see in that photo, for sewage. Maybe some of you might fear that now unaingia ndani ya tank na kunanuka sewage hapo. We're usually very safe, both health-wise, and we don't get into contact with the sewage. As you can see from there, we have gloves, we have masks, we have goggles, we have helmets, we have safety shoes, stroke boots, to ensure that whatever we do, we don't cause harm to ourselves or to the people around us. So now, whenever we come there are a set of instructions that we give the people around us, and as ourselves, we do a training internally to ensure that whatever we do is within the safe limits or within the government regulations. So don't worry, maybe somebody might be worried that now that these people are treating sewage, they might now be affected by diseases. We are very safe. We ensure all the safety measures are taken. We vaccinate ourselves, and once we get our treated water, it's very safe for you. You can touch it. We ensure the quality is good. We always get the standard from the government regulatory bodies to ensure that that treated water meets the standard of a normal water. Next. So maybe if we can read some of the safety requirements at site, especially now during this the pandemic of Corona. You see the process of maybe ensuring social distance. As you can see in that diagram, we have 2 of our colleagues who are working, and they're maintaining a good social distance. That is even more than 1.5 that the government requires. So we are good. You don't worry about us coming to your site, or maybe we observe all the safety measures. If you have any project that you want us to handle, don't worry. We are there and we'll observe all the safety measures. So what do we do? From the points we've written there, we develop a safe working environment for both our staff and for the people around that place. We provide protective clothing and equipment Again, this applies to the staff and the people around that place or the people who are coming to that site. We provide safety information and training that is very compulsory, and we assess all the risks that are around that site before any installation, and then we remove any unacceptable risk to safety which is around that site, and then we observe all the government regulations, especially now during this corona period. So whenever if we have a system, if you want us to do our site survey, trust us, we'll do it in a very safe way and we'll ensure all the government regulations are observed. Next.
Allow me to add something. Maybe there's someone in the forum wondering if they had an existing system that already has sewage. So how would we observe the safety? Because we say we don't go into sewage. So the answer is we always request that the tank is emptied, cleaned, and aired. And so what that means is if you have people already living in the house, either the sewage has to stop flowing in there, either by diverting it elsewhere, or the people, occupants, moving away maybe for a week, so that what you have as existing is emptied, cleaned, and made safe for us as a team to go in. So that's how we work it out if it's a conversion. And for us to convert your existing septic tank or conservancy, it also has to be confirmed that it is watertight and it doesn't allow groundwater to leak or stormwater to leak, because the only sewage that we treat should be the sewage coming from the house, because we design it based on the expected peak occupancy of a premise. Thank you. So I will move to the next.
So the next slab is about reuse of top slab after installation. Unlike the biodigester, so it has a lot of pipings and all those things. You cannot use the top slab for anything, or it's just a generally small system. But then another disadvantage that we didn't mention about the biodigester, for the people of biodigesters, you see, you usually have that water stock, or the sewage, let me not call it water, slippering into the soil. Now with time, there is what we call clogging into the soil. It depends on the type of soil that you have. So with time, after you install a biodigester, can lie to you, for the first time it will work good, in a good way, or you'll be able to discharge. But later with time, you'll have clogging, where we'll have those, you see, soil usually have pores. So with time, you'll get those pores filled up, and then what will happen? This sewage that you produce from your house will start accumulating into the soil around your house. So with time, you'll start sensing some smell that are coming from the soil around your house. Why is it this? Because you see that sewage is not treated, it's not filtered, or nothing is done to it. It will be accumulating there, and then you'll have a lot of smell. There's no way where the sewage will go. So the proper way, or the proper means which we can advise you to have your sewage treated, build an underground tank. You get all the sewage, or you get the clean water that you can reuse. Now, unlike you might have seen several water treatment systems, some have the, I don't know if any of you have ever seen a water treatment system, are underground, some are above, some have an open surface area, something of the sort. In EOCYCLE, our system usually it's underground, and the top surface, you can use it for anything you want. If it is parking, you can use a reinforced concrete, and then we, like on the diagram on the right, upright, yeah, that's a surface left for parking. You can use it for parking cars. Under there is a tank, the treatment process. So you see that space is not, as in it's utilized again. And then down again, we have the green. So you can see, I don't know whether you can see those manholes. Yeah, those are the manholes. And then the upper surface is left as a green surface. And by there, the lawns that you see there, the recycled water is what you use to irrigate them. So you can see from those pictures how people use the upper ground surface, the top slab after installation. So you don't need to, if it's a matter of maybe you are thinking of, if I install my system, where will I get this space for this and this thing? Don't worry, we'll come and survey your space and advise you accordingly on how you can use it, the top surface for. Next. So why do we need to recycle our sewage? One, all of us love the environment. As in, you cannot stay in a dirty place unless you're a mad person. So if you don't want to stay in a dirty place, then that means you need to take care of others as well. If you like eating what is coming from the water body, or if you like fish, or if you like drinking water, or if you like the rainwater, then you need to take care of your sewage. The only process of taking care of your sewage is ensuring it is recycled. And whenever you recycle your sewage, you ensure that it meets the government regulations and it meets the NEMA standards. And for you to do this, we advise you to adopt the EOCYCLE system, and we'll guarantee your quality, so that you ensure that all the living things that are in the water bodies, the environment, the air that you breathe, all the things, as in you just make sure the ecosystem is maintained properly. Many people are wondering, how can you participate in ensuring that the environment is green? Start by now by ensuring that your sewage is treated or is disposed in a proper way. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Troy, and Wycliffe, thank you for the great presentation. Now we would like to open it up to the participants. Interestingly, time really moves fast. Right now we are already at 10:11, but we are open to take a few questions, maybe for the next 15 minutes. If there are no questions, then we will be happy that we have done a good job of explaining. So the floor is open, and we can start by taking two questions that I see here from Adan Hussein. Very nice system. Can it be used to treat wastewater from factories which contains chemicals? That's a very good question there. Unfortunately, our system is biological, so it can only focus on the black and gray, the biological waste. So for chemical treatment, you will need another method of treatment, e.g. electrolysis or chemical treatment, which is a bit different from this. We have another question from Brian, says, impressive. How long can the system last before major repairs, assuming there are no electrical faults as explained? Actually, Brian, whatever is inside the tank should last you a lifetime. The things that tend to wear out are the electricals. We have the main component, which is the air compressor, and we use an air compressor that uses the technology of blades, rotating blades that compress the air. So of course, something that is rotating against some friction, chamber with friction, means will wear out after some time. So every 2 years, the large scale compressors for more than 70 people will need to be replaced every 2 years. Then the other things are the normal things like MCBs and contactors burning out. And for the small systems, for 5 to 50 people, those do not have a lot to be repaired. Actually, the earliest you're likely to get a major breakdown that would cost you maybe 15,000 is after 5 to 7 years of operation. The thing that you need to take care of is the running and maintenance costs, which would be the electricity cost for running the system. So for a small home serving 5 to 10 people, the electrical cost per month is about 400 shillings, and your maintenance contract per annum is about 10,000 to 13,000 Kenya shillings, which enables you to get a service call response for free and 2 scheduled visits within the year. We have another question from Emmanuel Kipkorir. How does the system handle non-biodegradable plastics, waste that users may dispose of into the sewer system? So if I may just go back to the slides, the design of the tank, if you saw it, we have a tank called a pretreatment chamber. Let me just close this. So the work of this pretreatment chamber is holding non-biodegradables, pre-equalization and preconditioning. So if people throw in things that we cannot biologically degrade, they all remain here, and then that calls for calling an exhauster to actually exhaust what would not be broken down. The frequency is about every 3 to 5 years, depending on how disciplined the end users at the premise are. If they throw more solids, then you may need to call the exhauster more. If it's only sewage coming in, the only thing that will need to be exhausted is what we would call very old inert sludge that has broken down and has no more microorganisms. And if people did not throw in non-biodegradables, that sludge, the inert sludge, can be dried out into very fine compost manure. Let me go back to the questions, and I can allow my colleague Troy to read the next questions we have now from Eric. Troy, you can take this.
Eric says, is the system available for single house dwelling and is it economic? Yes, the system is available for single house dwelling, and that is what we may have mentioned as a small system. And the smallest system we have gets us for a household of a minimum of 10 people. What is the lifespan of the entire system? The lifetime of the entire system is um, as long as possible. As long as possible. There is no specific lifetime. Yeah.
So long as it is maintained, just the same way you have a car. If you do not service your car as per scheduled service, it will break down faster. So our system, you can have it for your lifetime, so long as you adhere to the scheduled maintenance requirements in a year.
Yes. The next question is, what are the maintenance and operation activities during the system life and associated costs? My colleague had mentioned about the maintenance, and then just to answer the question, the maintenance activities include checking every component of the system and to ensure that it is still working and as required. And then also during maintenance services, we have to check into open the manholes. So we must have during the design, we must have provision for manholes for future services. So we also have to check the manholes. We have to check for the quality of the water, the quality of the sludge. So to know that treatment is happening at an optimum, we usually have to check the quality of the sludge. And also we have to check the quality of the water to ensure that the water is treated to standard. So those are the few things that we check during maintenance services. And also we had mentioned about the chlorinator kit. During the maintenance services, we also have to check the chlorinator kit because sometimes you realize that chlorine iliisha and the client has not checked to ensure that they have replaced it. So the only consumable we have in our system is the chlorine cartridges. So those ones have to be constantly checked to ensure, like for a small home, we need one chlorine cartridge for a period of 4 months. Yes. So those are 4 chlorine cartridges in a year. So during maintenance, we have to check them. Another person is saying, that's great. What about the energy requirements to treat the water in a single cycle? Can renewable energy, I'm assuming by renewable energy, you mean solar? Yes. Our systems can use solar instead of electricity, depending on where the location of the system. So, if you're in a place whereby there's no electricity, then yes, you can use solar as long as the solar provided meets the energy requirements of the system. So now, like for a small system, for the one that can handle a minimum of 10 people, usually the ratings are between 80 to 100 watts. I would assume that to be some bulbs or even a television. And if you work out the monthly cost of it, it lands you to about 300 to 400 per month, as Lucy had mentioned. Another person is saying, what is the cost of installing such a system, for example, a household of 10? Currently, with the prevailing situations, our prices have gone a little high from the original, and we range at about 400 to 500,000, depending also on where you are. If you're in Nairobi, it's a little cheaper than someone who is in Bungoma because of the logistical issues. We only have our head office currently in Nairobi, although in future we hope to spread our wings, but that is the cost implication of a small system of about 10 people. And if you would like a quotation, I invite all of you to visit our website. There is a tab whereby you will have to write the size of your system, when you want it, and exactly how you would want EcoCycle to come in. So once you make an inquiry with us, we'll be able to respond to your inquiry. Yes. And now invite Lucy or Wycliffe to take up the next questions.
Try the some questions you missed from Emmanuel Kipkorir.
You can take it up.
I can take that one. Of course, we would all love to have initiatives to manufacture locally. It's a long-term thing that we are pursuing, but it takes time to make a decision. And of course, apart from the technicalities of it, there is the commercial side and the economic side to consider whether it makes sense economically to keep bringing or to set up locally based on all the requirements and licenses and the stringent procedures that we have to go through. But that's a dream we have. Someone has asked about slums and energy. I think we need to differentiate for people that the energy generation process is anaerobic while our treatment process is aerobic. So we cannot generate energy while doing our treatment. But what can happen is the sludge from the pretreatment chamber can be supplied to a separate plant that is generating energy, and yeah, for sure that energy can be reused to run the system. So Wycliffe, you may go on with taking the other questions, and Troy, probably you can allow two people to verbally or audio-wise ask a question. They can raise their hands and you should be able to
Okay.
see.
There's one from Joseph Kabaru. He's asking, can we have a recorded version? I think this one will be sent.
Yes, we will have a recorded version of the scene and we will share them on your emails as we had shared the invitation links.
He's again asking where we are situated.
We are situated on Gong Road, Kindaruma Road to be precise, Blue Violet Plaza, 6th floor.
Okay.
But currently we are closed. We are working virtually, so you can get us through our phone number, which is also available on the website, or there's also an available email address on the website, and we can also give you if you need that.
Yusufa is asking if there's any extreme high temperatures on the system.
No. Okay, Lucy?
Yeah, and in case we have high temperatures, the only issue that would be affected is our electrical cabinet, and the reason we have the MCBs and contactors, the protection, so that if there is any issue with high temperatures, the thermal trippers will check in and trip and prevent our motor from burning out. So that's why we have the requisite protection.
Okay.
If I think you can take all these other three questions combined about the chlorination, the average, like for a small home, they replace once every month. For the very high usage users, we know one cartridge can only handle up to 500,000 liters. So it all varies on how much someone is pumping out. Is there a system that can treat the water and make it safe for human consumption? Yes, it is possible to have ultrafiltration. I think most of you have ever seen a video of Bill Gates drinking the water, but the question to it, it's quite expensive. So in comparison to treating the water further and invest so much for a home just to get water for treating, why not treat the sewage up to the secondary use level and save your fresh water intake for the drinking? Wycliffe, you can take the following. I think you can give people a small estimate and offer the ones that will inquire from this webinar a 20% discount and sort of tell them an average for a home.
Okay. So Troy, you can unmute anyone who has a question.
There's another question from Beth Wangui. She says, hi everyone, how does the system handle idling time? For example, if the users are away from the dwelling for a while. 2, what happens if power goes off, say for 24 hours? So I'd like to answer your question. During design, you usually have a provision of about 1 to 3 days. So when the power goes off, the system can still handle. When it comes back on, it will begin right from where it stopped. So that's how the system handles. If power goes off for a day or 2 days, then you're usually safe. But if it goes for more than 3 days, then we usually, because the bacteria depends on the aeration process, then we usually request that it be exhausted and then we start anew. So the system can handle when the clients are away from the dwelling place, but by going into the eco mode that Wycliffe was talking about. And then during the eco mode, instead of treating the full volumes, it will only revert to treating half of the volumes provided. And then Beth Wangui is also asking, what is the approximate cost of installation for a house of 10 people? So to answer your question, if you're in Nairobi, it falls at about 460. But like Lucy has said, we are open to giving people from this webinar a 20% discount. And if you're out of Nairobi, the same discount will still maintain, but the price may go just a little higher than that. Although we are open for discussion, we also have flexible payment plans. We know the implication of the prevailing situations, and we know things ahead, and we also understand as a company. So you come to us and then we will work out a flexible payment plan that meets you and also us at the same time.
Just to add, I think Trey has talked about installments, so we are able to give 4 to 6 installments. Unfortunately, before April, our system was always tax exempt, but after the tax amendments in April, now people have to pay 16% on the equipment because it's a green environment protecting equipment. So it has always been tax exempt, but unfortunately, in this COVID now we have to pay taxes. That's why the price has gone up because of the VAT, but it was always around 390 to 350. So we can take the next question. Someone is asking, are the repairs to be done only by EOCYCLE personnel or just anyone? So this is a system that you would like to attract our warranty and our support. So we always encourage that the repairs are done by authorized, trained EOCYCLE people, not just anyone. But again, the repair is quite, if there's anything to fix, it's very simple. It's just on the authorization bit, who is trained and authorized. Do you add bacteria to the system? No, we do not. We just do aeration, and the existing microorganisms reproduce, multiply, and they're able to break down the waste. Wycliffe, you can take the next questions.
He's asking the cost for 50 people. Maybe we do a quotation. I'm not sure of the exact price.
Hello, I'm saying he
Yes.
can send us for a quotation because we also need more detail. But if 10 people would cost you about 400, then you can extrapolate from that. But it's about $1 million, 1 point something.
Okay. Vincent Muhari is asking is the control cabinet fully automated or we need one to operate it from time to time? I'd say that you don't need to do anything once you install our system. Everything takes place automatically. Brian is asking, is the water quality checked after every treatment session? This depends on your test. Yeah, but once we've treated the water is usually taken to NEMA. So whenever you want it tested, if you doubt the quality, it can always be taken to NEMA. I think the first test is usually on the EOCYCLE, right, Engineer Lucy?
Yeah, during warranty,
Yes.
we give a test, and the WARMA and NEMA have a schedule of how often one is required to test. The bare minimum is every quarter. Again, real-time monitoring and tests will involve automation and real-time equipment. So it's all possible. It all depends on how much a client is interested to invest in. Because it's possible to monitor water quality online, but I don't even think our own Nairobi Water have it. So it all depends on the capital ability of the end user, but all those things are possible to monitor real time or just stick to the quarterly analysis or annual analysis as per requirements. The maximum number of people we can accommodate, any number of people. The biggest we have done so far is able to serve is a gated community serving 1,000 people in Kitengela. So it's scalable. We just replicate based on the population. I think we already answered that this water is not for drinking or water consumption. It's treated up to a level of secondary use, toilet flushing, lawn irrigation, dust suppression, cleaning your open space curb row, and cleaning cars.
Brian is saying, Brian has written, Engineer Lucy, this has potential to be replicated in the whole country. I am hoping you're looking at future expansion. To me, it should be a regulation by the government to have such a system as compared to how sewerage is handled currently in the country. Kudos to EcoCycle. Thank you very much, Brian. For sure, we look to expanding in the near future.
Please consider training sub-agents to help expand your reach. So we have our business model in check, and our biggest thing is maintaining quality and quality execution. So as I said, it has to be an authorized, well-trained person. So as we grow, we are open to models that will maintain quality throughout the country, not just expansion for the sake of just selling. We are very keen on quality, treating wastewater in the right way, because if we deliver wrongly, someone has paid a good amount, you tell them you're giving them clean, reusable water from sewage, and you give them sewage, that is not very good. So if anyone wants to speak, please, you can raise your hand digitally, because I think you have covered most of the questions. They say how we manage our.
I'm not seeing anyone.
There is a question here. We are just a 6-year-old company, but we are very savvy on how we project plan and digitalization. So the projects may seem to be 150, but we have a very good coordinated method of how we do our maintenance and installations. So far, we've not had any issue on quality service to our customers. So
I'm not seeing any hand that is raised.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if, okay, maybe you can write in the chats if you want to say something, then I can unmute you and maybe call your name to speak. But there is an icon like a hand waving. You can just click on that to show that you are raising your hand, and then we will see it from our side.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
Yes, please.
So first of all, this is so impressive. I love the whole idea. I am a civil engineer, and my main concern is we have so much waste from industry and slums. Now that you guys are experts in this field, do you think that there are other solutions that we can provide maybe to scale and help? Let's say Kisumu is suffering from a lot of filth, a lot of factories, and the slums and the literature is being affected. Is there anything you guys can comment on that or recommend, being that you're now experts in this field? Thank you.
Hello, I hope everyone is still there. So thank you very much for your question.
I'd like Lucy to take up that.
Okay, can I be heard? Thank you for the question. As you have said, you're calling us,
yes,
but we would like to categorize waste, because people easily just will blanket someone, because we have been seeing treating gray wastewater. Now people think we can offer all the solutions. Personally, I like to advise people to learn to specialize. Industrial waste, chemical waste, electrical waste, different types of waste are different. So we are focusing on the sewage, the gray and black. So of course there are solutions to handle the industry waste, the pollution in the air, the chemicals they produce. So for now, all we can recommend is people who have expertise in that to take up that. But our business model as EcoCycle is to focus on the black and gray, because it's a lot. And there's also industrial waste, which is a lot. So it's good for different experts to come up and take up those scopes. But as Kenyans, we need to learn to specialize and separate, because if I'm just business minded and someone tells me because you do gray, I think you can handle waste. If you think about it professionally, it may not really be an honest answer, because everybody needs to specialize on what's their specialty. So at the moment, our specialty is black and gray wastewater. And for sure, there exist solutions in chemical waste management or industrial pollution. So those solutions just need to be embraced, and owners of factories need to embrace those solutions to stop the pollution menace. I hope I have answered.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Any other person? Do not feel left out. We are getting towards the tail end of the webinar, so we do not want to lock you out. Alternatively, you can also unmute yourself and then say something.
Troy, if there are no questions, I think it's okay. I think we have handled everything intensively, but we can just drop our email here, our general email. For any inquiries, please send us an email to info@ecocycle.co.ke. We'll also be sharing the YouTube recording of this webinar. We are very active on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Send your inquiries there on our website and we should be able to handle them. And we really appreciate everyone that sat in the whole presentation up to the tail end. And once again, if you are a consultant, if you are a client, if you just quote this webinar on the 24th of July, you will get, we'll offer you a 25% discount. So Troy, over to you to wind up.
Yeah, I want to appreciate everyone for taking the time. I hope you have you came out with something out of this. And for those looking out for the recording, Joseph, Owen, who came in late, we have you guys. We shall again share the presentation via email. We also have a YouTube page where we will post it also on our YouTube, so you can follow us there. Once again, thank you very much. We hope that you join us in the race towards saving our environment and making it more sustainable, thinking of the future, because in future, we all want the future generations to enjoy the same environment that we are living in. So it's a call to all of us. It's not only to EcoCycle and the people working there. We ask all of you to join us in the race towards sustainability. Thank you very much. And I now take it over to Wycliffe to say something. And maybe I can also see our colleague Esther has joined. She wasn't able to say something at the beginning. Maybe now she can say something as we close.
From my side, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for your time. We hope to save the environment.
Okay, I think then we can just end it, and a good day to everyone, and keeping safe. Thank you very much, and maybe everybody can put on their camera just for the end for people to wave bye-bye. All participants can just for us to have a glimpse people that we have on board. If you are around people, I hope you have your mask. And yeah, thank you very much. God bless you. Keep the environment safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.